All right, welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. My name is David Meyer. I'm with Minis by Meyer. Today we're going to be doing a quick tutorial on how I paint white. So before we get started, know that you can catch this on my YouTube channel as well as Facebook. And if you're watching us on Twitch, thank you very much. Appreciate anybody that subscribes to my channel or follows me. We'll get started in just a moment. I am a commissioned painter. I paint for hire. I paint pretty much anything you need me to paint. I painted action figures. I've painted now miniatures. I've painted vehicles. I've painted all kinds of things. But we'll get right to the tutorial here. Now, I have chosen to talk about painting white. I'm going to turn my music down just a wee bit. Okay, white for miniature painters tends to be a scary color, especially for beginners. I remember my first time painting white. It was a challenge. It has this thing of it just doesn't perform like many of the other colors, like blue and red and black. It just does not perform the same. And then when you throw in washes and so forth, white just takes all of the look of the wash. It just takes it all in, and it doesn't look white anymore. So we have to kind of reverse our thought process when we paint white. But I'm going to show you two ways tonight that I paint white. I'm going to show you a simpler way, and then I'm going to show you a longer way. It may be considered a harder way, but it will teach you how to do it, at least how I do it. Other artists have different ways of painting white. There are some really nice ways of doing it. This is the way that I do it. I've been doing it for a while. It comes out great. Let me show you real quick before we start. This is one of my first adventures into painting white. One of my first. But this is in the beginning of painting it. As you can see, the helmet and so forth in here. So this is about when I started to get it down and so forth. I won't show you the stormtroopers I did in white, but they weren't that good. Anyway, so we'll start with the easy one first. The go-to method for white is the simpler, easier way to do it is with contrast paints. And you can achieve that by, first of all, okay, this sounds weird, but you prime your model, and here's a green army man, in white, okay? Now, for the purpose of this, this is the way, you can say, oh, well, let's leave it like this. Well, this has no shading to it. It's rather flat. So how do you add the shading? How do you add that to white? So when you add washes to white, it just doesn't do well. It just doesn't. So what you have to do is, with contrast, is you just start off with a white color. And I'm going to go ahead and paint that on here. And white, Apothecary White, looks, well, for all purposes, great. But it does go on, when it dries, it looks white. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the easy way to do it. So I'm going to shake the jar up. By the way, if you got any questions or anything, please comment below or chat. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll try to go as slow as I can. All I'm doing is shaking the contrast paint right now. This is Apothecary White. Again, that's the name, Apothecary White. Just shaking it up. And I showed this on my other previous stream. It's in another video where I talked about where we were dealing with contrast paints. I talked about what this paint is like. This is one of my favorites to use. So we're going to get started. So crack it open. As you can see, it looks great. Well, and you can go right from the jar, right from the pot, and just go crazy. Now, here's what it will look like. In a minute, I'll show you the results of how this looks when it dries. So contrast paint goes on nice. You got to move it around a lot. It does tend to pool, so you got to move it, the excess around. But notice how it's falling into the recesses, okay? The gray is in the recesses of down in here. It's in the gray area, and then the white kind of comes out, okay? So now we're just going to go ahead, just keep. Again, you got any questions or anything, please do not hesitate to ask. You need me to re-explain something, please do so. So I'm just covering it with Apothecary White. This is only one of two that I'm going to show you how I paint white. Two ways that I do it tonight. So this is the easier method. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like to paint the whole thing in Apothecary White and how he looks. There we go. All right. So he's painted completely in Apothecary White. I didn't cover his boot. I'm holding his boot. So there. So it'll dry, and this is how it looks. I have another one already done. This is how it will look when it's done. Okay? So it's the same one, but it's done completely in Apothecary White, and it's completely dry. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do one more thing to this to really make it look white. This is the easy way to do white. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to get makeup brush. Okay? Makeup brush. Okay? And we're going to get a little bit of our white scar. Okay? Shake it up. The white scar is pretty bright. Pop it open. Only need a little bit. And all I'm doing is I dab it in the paint. Get it on there. Okay? White scar. Then I'm going to rub it off on here. Okay? Then we're going to dry brush the white scar on. And what this is going to do is it's going to brighten up the white that's on top. Very simple. And there it goes. Now, the light's only going to hit it from one angle, so I'm only going to do this side. Already that looks a huge difference in it, and it's got some shading to it, a lot of texture. It's got the shadows and so forth under here, so it's pretty cool. So this is the contrast method, simple. You can do this as long as it takes for the contrast paint to dry, but yeah, that's it. So, real simple recipe. So now, we're going to go over to the more lengthy process. This is the one where you kind of train yourself to be patient. And I'm cleaning off my brush right now, the makeup brush, so bear with me a second. But, so, this is the one where you learn to teach yourself a little bit of patience. So we're going to start by painting this gray one. It's going to be gray, but it's going to be a white color. This is going to take a little bit of time, but we'll get there. Okay. So if you look over here, I have a dark gray, and we just kind of, the spectrum goes all the way over to the white scar we just used. Okay. I do have Corax white, but for the purpose of this, I'm not, well, I don't really want to use it. It kind of gets messed up. I don't know what GW is doing with that, but I might be using something else with that. So the colors I have here are Eshin Gray, Storm Vermin Fur, Dawnstone, Administratum Gray, Gray Seer, Pallid Witch Flesh, and White Scar. Okay, so right away, this is too dark for me, so I'm taking the Eshin Gray out. Okay, this is Storm Vermin Fur. It's about the same color. I'm taking that out. Okay, this is Dawnstone. Okay, it is very close to it, but we're going to use it. Okay, start off with Dawnstone. Now I showed you the other grays because sometimes if you're painting something black, okay, it's a black, you would want to start off with a darker gray in those senses. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with a gray and we're going to work up to white. Okay, we're going to work up to white. Okay, and you're going to be highlighting. Basically, you're highlighting white with white. Okay. So starting off with Dawnstone. Okay. This is going to be a little bit lighter than what we're dealing with. May look the same, but it's a little bit lighter, and that's okay. And we're only going to concentrate on the areas where there's light today. And we're only going to concentrate on the top, which would be his back in this case. Okay? And I always add water to my paint. Just makes the paint flow better. There you go. We're not worrying about cracks and crevices right now. We're just painting the higher areas with this color. Okay? Again, you got any comments or questions, please comment and let me know. I'm not worried about whether it's what color is boots and stuff. For the purpose of this tutorial, we're focusing on one color only, and that's the color white. Yes, we're working with gray, but all right. And you see, I'm not being very definitive with my strokes. I'm just following the top. That's it. Already you can see a highlight to it. All right, there's that color. Or there's that gray. Not really color, right? All right, that was Dawnstone. Again, I'll show it on the camera. Dawnstone. Next, we're going to move over to Administratum Gray. Excuse my nose is running a little bit. Jump over to that. And we're going to be a little bit more controlled with what we're doing here. We are going to take big strokes as well, but not as big as we were taking with that one. So this is a bit lighter gray. It's probably a lot more than what the Dawnstone was, but that's okay. Mixing my water in, I need a lot more than that. I think I used too much. Now if you want, you can mix the two to get an in-between tone. I'm not going to do that for this exercise. This is just strictly how I paint white. Okay. The paint's still wet over here. The leg, it's already dry. One thing I like about acrylic paint, man, it doesn't waste time drying. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start painting the legs. And we're going to need a couple of coats on this. Now I'm not trying to cover all the other gray color. I'm not. I'm trying to keep that in place. staying with the general shape. Notice I didn't go down in the recesses on that one. I want those to look dark as I work. So there, it's getting a little bit brighter now. Go ahead and trace this section again. I'm going to thicken up the coat. This is actually kind of fun. I enjoy this. Painting this like this, I'm enjoying this. I'm digging it. Yeah, so it's just, all I'm doing is just following the direction. I'm imagining the light coming down straight on top of it for purpose of this tutorial here. So all right, so there you go. So now you can see the shadows on it. Now I'm not covering the rest of it. I'm trying to build up to white. That's the purpose of the exercise, building up to white, okay? Build up to white. Okay. All right, so that was Dawnstone and Gray Seer. Now we're going to use Pallid Witch Flesh. Now this is kind of I want to say a little bit of a chalky color, but that's okay, but it will start to really bring everything together, start to make everything look white. So. Always add your water. So the one thing about white that you will determine if you use it is that it has a very translucent to it, translucent look to it. As you use it, and then the paint color doesn't stay consistent as you go down with each stroke. Well, that's one of the other challenges with it. While doing it this way, by building up to white, you don't have to worry about that so much, okay? All right, so now what we're gonna do is, what the heck? You can see it's doing that as well, but I'm able to hide it with the gray. It blends in nicely. It's trying to be translucent. And don't think that by adding less water it'll help it. No, and then you get a chalky look, and that's not what you want. You don't want the chalky look. It will not look good, and then that's hard to get rid of. It just the way it is, man. Now I could have just dry brushed this. I could have just as easily, but there are some things you're just not going to be able to dry brush through. Say you got to paint a Space Marine helmet white. Well, now you know how. You're not going to be able to reach that with a dry brush technique. There are some other recipes for white that I would like to try that once I get those down, I'm probably going to do a tutorial on those. Um, this is just what I've learned over time. If you do this, your whites will come out better. It does take layers. Okay. One more coat. So it's got a little bit of roughness to it, so we want to clean it up. You can see my brush strokes. And white will reveal your brush strokes. Might need another coat, that's okay. But yeah, white, ooh, it will reveal your brush strokes. Brush strokes, brush strokes, brush strokes. Get it right, David. There are other ways to paint white out there, though. There are. Yeah, you could just use the white primer. You could use airbrush. Airbrush is the easiest. Then again, if you're having to paint a Space Marine head or something, cloth, just whatever, you're not going to be able to nail that down with an airbrush unless you're really good at it with airbrushing. I'm not saying that nobody is, because there are some really good airbrush artists out there with mini painting, but from the get-go, I can't do that myself. So and this is a good technique to learn. You can see the transparency I was talking about right there, especially on the helmet. At least I could. I use a lot more white, or the palette one paint, in this step than I did in any others. Okay. There we go. We're almost to the finish line. White scar. Just shaking my paint up. You can see how bright it is. There's something about white though that when you use it in an airbrush though, just something I noticed. It doesn't matter if it's an ink or an acrylic paint. It just kind of, I don't know, it just spurts sometimes. It's just kind of weird. So, all right, here we go. Add a little water to it. And I just did that so I dab the water off some on the end of my brush. I'm only focusing on the high points. To sell it. Okay, so you see, that's the white is, I'm only focusing on the high areas. And when you do that, it will help sell it as being white. Now I know it's going to take a couple of coats. a coat of the white in particular spots. Like I said, I'm just focusing on the top, building up to a nice, strong white color. Now, some people would call this sketching out the colors and whatnot, but you could call it whatever you want. I'm just painting, trying to give it some shadows and so forth. I actually like the way this one looks, preferably than this one. I mean, I know this one's completely painted, but if I painted this whole thing and so forth, I could, I would do that, but for the purpose of this training and this tutorial, I did only the top. So, yes, this one looks a little frosty, but this one has a lot more depth to it. Now, the gray is darker, but you can use that for a different variety of reasons, depending on the tone that you're going for. But overall, I wanted to emphasize that you can build up to white. Like I said, I didn't use a wash on this. That's the thing about white, is you use a wash on it and it dirties it almost immediately. So you got to be mindful of that. So that's it. That's pretty much how I paint white in those two variations. I'll choose one or the other depending on what I'm working on. And that's it. You got another method you'd like me to check out, please let me know, or in the comments. By all means, I'll be happy to look at it. Otherwise, my name is David. I'm with Minis by Meyer, and I appreciate you, and thanks for watching.